Hey lambs, I am back for your midweek rant. In today's midweek rant, we are talking about a Tennessee man who has been charged with the brutal murder of his wife, using a hammer as a deadly weapon. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/loveandmurder. And I invite you to become a lamb sponsor as well. It helps keep the lights on and helps me make better episodes just for you. Patreon.com/loveandmurder. Now, without further ado, let's get into this midweek rant. 76-year-old Jackie Glynn was a beloved mother of a bunch of adult children who lived in the greater Nashville area and owned a historic wedding venue called the Riverwood Mansion. She was married to Joseph Glynn, who was 70, and one day she just went missing. She didn't show up to her business, which was really weird. She didn't call her children, which was even more weird, and nobody knew where she was. So when the children were asking their father, Joseph, "Where's mom?" he told them, "Oh, she is terminally ill." So she went ahead and left, and she's in a facility somewhere dealing with her terminal illness. So the children were like, "Without telling us?" So they called their mother's medical provider and said, "Hey, mom didn't tell us she was terminally ill. What is she ill with? What's going on?" And the medical provider was like, "Huh? Can you give me her name again? Because I don't remember telling anybody they were terminally ill." And they were like, "Jackie Glynn, date of birth XYZ 123. And he said, "Yeah, no, I didn't tell anybody they were terminally ill." So they said, "Okay." And then called their father back. And their father said, "Well, that's all I know." So then the children started getting worried and called 911. "Can't find my mom. She's an elderly woman, 76 years old. We don't know what happened to her. Our father doesn't know what happened to her. Can you help us find her?" So police put out a silver alert, which is the elderly's version of an amber alert. So once that silver alert went out, everybody's looking for her. And also police picked up Joseph because, you're the last one who saw her. So under the intense pressure of the interrogation, and probably Johnson looking at him with that spotlight on him, Joseph admitted something shocking to the police. He said that, let me level with you officers. On New Year's Day at our Green Hills home, I beat my wife to death with a hammer. And then I took the hammer and I tossed it away in the trash. And police were like, "Excuse me, what?" And he said, "Yeah, I tossed the hammer in the trash at a Keltenberg convenience site." And they were like, "So where's your wife?" So he told them that she's buried somewhere on the property. So initially, police went out to the Green Hills home to search the property. And in the meantime, they're looking for the hammer as well. Sheriff Ray contacted County Mayor Matt Addock and wanted to get access to the compactor dumpster to look for the hammer for evidence. Quote, "Last Friday night, I contacted County Mayor Addock about the convenience site at the Keltenberg and if the compactor dumpster had been dumped since Tuesday. He thought that it had been. County Mayor Addock called me back Saturday morning and told me the dumpster did not have enough trash in it to dump. I had Mayor Addock pull the dumpster in from the compactor and take it to the transfer station. It was placed there in a secure location under camera. We went today at 3 p.m. and by 3:25 p.m. we had found 2 bags. Glynn had told Metro Nashville detectives that there were 2 bags he had thrown in the trash. One of the bags had clothes and things in it. The other bag had a bloody hammer and other articles in the trash bag that had blood on them, including a towel and rags that Glynn had allegedly used to try to clean up the murder scene in Nashville. We retrieved them." He went on to say, "2 Metro detectives and myself went and talked to Rooster on Friday and asked him if he knew Glynn. He first said no, but after a few minutes, Miller said he remembered him. Miller said it had been a couple of weeks since he had seen him." Glynn they're talking about, and that he had not talked to him and did not know anything about him. Later that night, Sheriff's Department detectives went and talked to Miller again, and he confessed to knowing where Miss Glynn's car was. That's how we found the car. We learned that on Tuesday, Glynn towed the vehicle on a trailer and had dropped it off at Miller's house. and then sent Miller a text stating the vehicle was at his house. It stayed there until 10 or 10:30 Friday when Glynn came and picked up the vehicle and took it to Barnes Mill Road. When we found out that Miller had lied to law enforcement during the murder investigation, we decided to charge him with filing a false report. So we'll get into who is this Miller in a second. In the meantime, Joseph was arrested and booked into the Davidson County Jail on charges of criminal homicide, abuse of a corpse, and evidence tampering. He is currently being held on a $1,030,000 bond. So in the meantime, like I said, they're looking for the murder weapon and they're looking for the body. However, they're looking for the body in Green Hills, Tennessee, when they got a call from a neighbor in DeKalb County who told them that, our neighbor Joseph Glynn just dug a hole and it's like 6 feet long. And it's kind of the size of a grave, and it looks like it had just been filled. So we don't know what's going on, but we want to report this. So police said, oh my God, he basically lied to us because he just said at home. He didn't say which home. So I guess technically he didn't lie. So police rushed over to the house in DeKalb County, and that's when they found a hole. They went ahead and redug up the hole, and that's where they found Jackie. The hole was 6 foot wide by 10 feet long by 6 feet deep, 1.829 meters wide, 3.048 meters long, and 1.829 meters deep. They could clearly see that the body had been beaten and it had been placed inside a plastic vehicle cargo box. Then, on top of that, the box had been hidden under a pile of roofing shingles. So they went back to Joseph and said, yeah, Joseph, we found Jackie. And so he said, yeah, okay, let me tell you everything else. So on New Year's Day, I battered her to death. And on January 2nd, I put her body in a plastic cargo box. Then I drove her remains 60 miles to our other property in DeKalb. I left that out in DeKalb County. And I basically dumped her body in a hole that another contractor had dug up for me. So they said, somebody dug this hole for you? Like they knew what they were doing? And he said, no. I just had a contractor on December 16th come and dig a hole for me. And I told him it was for a burn pit. Imagine how that person feels when they found out what they actually dug the hole for. Like that's trashy. I mean, the whole thing is trashy, but that is absolute trash. Quote, I don't think anyone can wrap their heads around it. And that's a quote from one of Jackie's good friends, Leslie Emmett. Later on, now this is when we get into who this Miller person is, the sheriff's department made another arrest, Anthony Rooster Miller, who is 29 of Allen Bend Road. He was charged, like I said earlier, with filing a false report. This is because Rooster was accused of being an accomplice in the murder, but he had ended up giving conflicting stories to investigators about if he had been in contact with Jackie, if he had been in contact with Joseph, knowing anything about that, and knowing where Jackie's Toyota RAV4 was, when he was the one who actually moved the Toyota RAV4. Quote, we learned that on Tuesday, Glynn towed the vehicle on a trailer and had it dropped off at Miller's house, and then sent Miller a text stating that the vehicle was at his house. It stayed there until 10 or 10:30 Friday when Glynn came and picked up the vehicle and took it to Barnes Mill Road. And then they saw the text message and everything like that and said, hey, you've been lying to us, and that's why he was arrested. He is in jail with a $10,000 bond, and he's supposed to go to court actually tomorrow, January 25th. Joseph, on top of everything, as if that wasn't enough, was also accused of selling items that belonged to Jackie after he murdered her, just days after he murdered her, as well as contacting a realtor to sell their DeKalb County property. Why? Because the body was buried there? As of this moment, nobody knows why he did this. There's no motive. He hasn't said anything. Nobody knows. It's not like they had a horrible marriage. They just don't understand his motive, and he's not talking. Leslie said, quote, such a sad day with the tragic news of a friend of over 25 years whose life was horrifically taken. Jackie was a tiny woman with big dreams, and Bill and I were honored to watch her live, make, build, and curate her dream of having the most amazing wedding venue where Nashville couples say, I do. So now I wonder what could possibly be the motive for this murder. I wonder if while they're doing investigation or if maybe insurance comes into play. I'm not sure. I couldn't imagine. Maybe he wanted to sell the property and she didn't. I can't imagine what could possibly be his reason for doing this. And with a hammer. And then you lie to your children. Oh my God. I don't even know. And also, did he think so little of his children that he didn't think they were smart enough to check up on his little story? That's my question. Did you think your children were that dumb? This is just a shitty case from beginning to end. I'm going to keep track of this case as I have some other Kai rants to keep track of and let y'all know the updates. But in the meantime, what do you think of this case? I want to hear from you in the comments below. And for this week's poll, I'll ask you if you think he had assistance in this murder. The reason I ask this is because police don't think he did this alone. Not only with Rooster, not just that, but carrying it out and burying her and everything. They are under the assumption that he had help, but they can't find any evidence that he did. And of course, he's not talking. I mean, he is 70. To move a dead body in somebody younger, dead weight, that's heavy. But then again, some 70-year-olds are really, really fit. So he might have been able to move that by himself. I can't even see what other thing he would need help in. He had somebody else dig their hole unbeknownst to them. He had somebody else move her car. I mean, other than literally physically moving the body, I can't see what else he would have needed help in. But that's just me. So what do you think? Do you think he had assistance in this murder? And if you don't get to take the poll, because I only put the poll out in our Spotify, then you could just put yes, he had assistance in the murder. Just say yes or no in the comments below. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read some of your comments and poll answers from some of our past Midweek Wednesdays. So Midweek Wednesday last week was the rant of a PA woman who allegedly murdered her boyfriend's 18-month-old daughter by poisoning her. Remember, it was the case of Alicia Owens. My question was, what support and resources do you think should be available to parents to help them identify potential risks in the safety of their children? Stacy Marie answered, there are always red flags, but if you aren't looking for them, you won't see them till it's too late, or you will see some and not others, so not a complete picture. Poor child, I wonder what else she endured. I agree, and I don't want to think about what else she could have possibly endured because literally that's going to break me, so I don't want to think about it. The poll question was, do you think you can always spot someone capable of child abuse? And 33% of y'all said no, there's no way. And 66% of y'all said there is always a way. There are always red flags. I think, yeah, if you look for them, there are always red flags. However, you could also misconstrue certain things. So I don't know if you can always, sometimes, it depends. Okay, let me put it this way. It depends on how long you've known a person. Most people can hold a facade for a certain amount of time, but they cannot hold it indefinitely. So you'll be able to see cracks in their facade sooner or later. But that's why you don't move quickly in a relationship. And again, I'm not saying this for everybody because I know some people who got married after 2 weeks, who got married after 3 months, and they are together 50 years, 30 years, and there's nothing wrong. So again, I'm not saying this for everybody. I just think if you have a kid, kind of move slower if you're looking for somebody else. That's just my personal opinion. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I think you should just move slower when you're dealing with somebody around your kid. Don't bring them around your kid really quickly. Feel that person out. And even when you bring them around your kid, take it slow. That's my opinion. That's what I would do. I'm only speaking on what I would do in my life. So the majority of you said there are always red flags. Then the midweek rant from January 4th was the Gypsy Rose episode, which, oh my God, at first everybody was like, oh, Gypsy Rose. And apparently everybody's like trying to cancel her or something. I mean, y'all, the ones who did this, y'all could only be mad at yourselves. You can't even be mad at Gypsy. Like suddenly it goes from, yeah, Gypsy Rose, oh, you slay queen and all that other stuff to, oh my God, she's doing too many interviews and blah, blah, blah. Well, y'all kind of gave her the platform. So y'all could only be mad at yourselves. Anyways, what I asked with this was basically the generic question, which, what do you think about this episode? Because I genuinely want to know what you think about every episode that I'm doing. I want to hear your opinions, your thoughts, everything. So that was my question. And Rachel Hansen 510 said, this episode was good. Also, I do have sympathy for what she went through, but I do think she manipulated her boyfriend. She knew he had mental issues. So that's what I said too. I have sympathy for what she went through. I don't have sympathy for the moment when she decided to kill her mother and went through with it. Anything after that, my sympathy is flushed down the toilet. Emily Weaver said, she went through so much abuse that I do feel sympathy. I don't think she felt she had any way out. She was groomed to be an invalid. Emily, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I hear what you're saying. I hear that you think that she felt like she had no way out. However, I think she was to that point where she was kind of clapping back at her mom, like refusing to stay in the wheelchair, going after boys. So I think if she had given it a little bit more time, she probably would have literally got up and left the house with a boy. Like that's what I think. But also I think maybe she was tired and didn't want to give it more time. But again, murder though. No, I still stick with my original statement. I feel sympathy for her all the way up until she made a conscious decision to murder her mother or have her murder. And because you got to think about it, Emily, think about it. She did that or had it done while she sat in the bathroom listening to her mother being stabbed. So you know her mother's screaming, grunting, all of this stuff. She's listening to this. I don't care if she has her hands over her ears. Put your hands over your ears right now. Can you still hear me? Yes, you can. So she was hearing this. And then right after, this is where I just can't. Right after that, she had sex in the same house, in the bedroom adjacent to her mom's, with her mom's dead body there, with the guy who just murdered her mom. He probably still had flecks of blood all over him. This is where I can't get into the whole, I think she felt she didn't have any other way out and she's a victim. That's where it's killing it for me. So what do you think, Emily? You can respond under this same post if you want, but I want to know what you think. When I put it that way, do you still feel like you have sympathy for her up until the murder? Because that's the part that's killing me. That is the part. I mean, I could even kind of wrap my head around what you're saying and what some other people are saying when it comes to that. If it was, she got him to do that and then they just ran out of the house and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that they stopped and had sex in the house with her dead mom's body right there, and he more than likely hadn't washed up, taken a shower, anything like that. And then she ransacked the house for money and then she left. These are the parts that are giving me like, I'm not buying it. That's where it's messing it up for me. I'm not buying it. So that's what I think, Emily. Of course, I'm not coming for you. You have your own opinion. So I'm totally not coming for you. But it's just, I'm telling you my opinion and all that. So then the poll for this was, do you have overall sympathy for Gypsy Rose after prison or not? And 36% of you said they had sympathy for her, and 63% of you said you only had sympathy for the abuse. And then the third option was zero sympathy for her, period, and nobody chose that. So the majority of people chose only for the abuse, which is what I agree with. But I told you, I gave you my reasons why I agree with that. So if you want to come back and try and convince me, feel free. I want to hear your thoughts. I always want to hear my lamb's thoughts. Which, by the way, speaking of that, while I was on vacation during December and I wasn't reading out your comments, somebody posted a comment saying they didn't want to be called a lamb. Well, I don't know what to tell you. This is love and murder, LAM. So that's where lambs come from. I used to say L&Mers. I really didn't like that, but I couldn't think of anything else. But then my ex-co-host came in and he said lamb. And I was like, why didn't I see that in all this time? And he just saw it like that. And I loved it. And I don't mean it in any disrespect. I literally mean it as love and murder listeners. LAM. So that's all that is. So lamb it is. Unless y'all could think of something else you want to be called, it's my lambs. I love the name. It suits the show. But if you want to come up with different names that y'all want to be called, it's up to my fans. If you don't want to be called lambs, but you could think of something else, let me know. Send me a message, noconductradio@gmail.com. And that is all I have for you in this midweek mini. Now, Before we go, you already know, if you want to continue supporting Love and Murder, Lamb, and you want to be a sponsor and you want to donate to Love and Murder, you can become a Lamb Patreon. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. You will get Kai rants in there. You'll get bonuses, bonus episodes. You will get episode extras. So like pictures, case files, trial videos, all of that by becoming a Lamb Patreon. If you want to do a one-time donation, then you can head on over to my site, murderandlove.com, and you can buy me a coffee, or like I say, buy me an apple juice. You can also just click on the link in the show notes below. Oh, and also, I forgot, in season 4, you have 3 ways of becoming a Lamb supporter. You could do it in Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder. You could do it on Spotify. So if you look on Spotify, on my profile page, you'll see the Spotify Patreon link, or you could do it in Spreaker. Either way, all those links are in the show notes below. You can get there easily, or you could just buy me an apple juice. Or you could just listen to this episode and share it. Share with your mom, share with your friend, share with your husband, share with your friend that will move your car for you. Share, 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 share. And as I end each episode, well, I end usually my full episodes, but I'm going to end this midweek mini by reminding you that it's all love and no murder, y'all. Bye.